Does everybody understand that? So, who gives a damn about women in sport? This isn't just some glib headline-grabbing comment I came up with. This is actually a comment that was made to me when I brought up the subject of, by a former colleague, a male colleague, when I brought up the subject of women playing rugby.
Women's sports first made their appearance back in the 19th century. Sports such as horseback riding, archery, golf, tennis, skiing, and skating were enjoyed by women in the upper social class.
One of the first instances of women in high-level sports was in 1866 when Vassar College started 2 all-female baseball teams. Then, about 10 years later, the first professional baseball match between all-female teams was held between the Blondes and the Brunettes in Springfield, Illinois.
In 1890, women in sports continued to grow as hundreds of baseball teams, consisting primarily of women, began to get paid as they traveled the country playing baseball against men's teams.
Hey, look what's happening to baseball. Women's professional teams, particularly in the Middle West, have enjoyed remarkable popularity. The girls are so good, even the men have dropped their initial skepticism and become rabid fans.
Women in competition were continuing to spread across sports. And 6 years later, the first women's intercollegiate basketball championship was held between Stanford University and the University of California at Berkeley. 30 years later, in 1926, the Amateur Athletic Union sponsors the first ever national women's basketball championship.
In 1936, the All-American Redheads team, a barnstorming troupe similar to the Bloomer Girls, is formed. It is generally regarded as the first women's professional basketball team.
As new professional teams emerged, the All-American Girls Softball League was formed under Chicago White Sox owner Philip Wrigley. The league was created to fill the void left by many major league players enlisting for war and gradually transformed into the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. 11 years later, the league played its last season.
In 1972, President Richard Nixon signs Title IX of the Educational Amendment of 1972. In 1974, the Women's Sports Foundation is created by Billie Jean King. It is, quote, a charitable educational organization dedicated to increasing the participation of girls and women in sports and fitness and creating an educated public that supports gender equity in sport.
I think the media, when it covers women's sports, has generated a lot of interest. Sometimes it covers women's sports as sort of a novelty or something much less serious than men's sport. Other times it covers it just straight up. These are athletes, these are sports, this is who won, these are the interesting stories.
Serena Williams absolutely melted down and turned that final and the aftermath into an absolute disgrace.
So for instance, with Serena Williams, there was a lot of discussion about how she did overreact and how, yes, maybe a man wouldn't be penalized, but she still, broke the rules. It's true, but I think what good sports reporting does will put that in the longer context of how Serena Williams has been treated throughout her career and the reasons that she might be angry or suspect unfair treatment.
There was a big deal. And then, Serena got angry on the court, which again, sports people do. This is a normal thing, not just in tennis, in every sport. And it's just been interesting to see how the discussion has evolved and molded. On one side, people are like, Serena loses it on the court, she's hysterical. And it's like, we never say that about NBA players. We never say that when LeBron is fighting about a foul, there was a foul. We never LeBron lost it. He lost all control. It was his meltdown.
There's been longitudinal studies, and since the 1990s, women receive no more television coverage than they did 30 years ago. It's, on ESPN or on major news outlets, it's a tiny fraction. It's no more than 3 or 4% of all sports coverage goes to women's sports. So in that sense, I think it really hurts women's sports.
While female athletes seem to have unsurpassable limits and boundaries up against them, there are women within our own communities that knock down those walls and lead the way for women in contact sports.
Roller derby's history dates back to the 1920s, when the name roller derby was coined. In the late 1930s, a man named Leo Seltzer had a traveling roller derby tour, the Transcontinental Roller Derby. It began to evolve from a marathon skating race on a raised track, which led to the foundation of roller derby as a team sport that still exists today. Roller derby was originally a co-ed sport.
Back at the time, roller derby events drew large audience when it began to be televised in the 1940s. Many people were inspired by Seltzer's work and began to create a franchise, which influenced roller derby becoming more like a theatrical performance than a sport, much like today's player experience.
But in the early 2000s, modern women's roller derby got its start in Austin, Texas, with the Texas Roller Girls. By 2010, there were more than 450 flat-track roller derby leagues worldwide.
In 2005, 20 flat-track roller derby leagues came together at the historic first meeting of the ULC, which was the official roller derby organization, with the goal of developing the guiding principles and aspirations of this new organization. The ULC voted to change its name to the Women's Flat Track Derby Association, WFTDA, to reflect the organization's goals.
Chess and football on skates combined. It's the mental game of chess. You've got to always be a step ahead, but it's the physicalness of football, and then we're on skates. So you combine the two, and there you go.
We're holding each other up physically sometimes, or you're throwing your friend into somebody else, and you're like, hey, you threw me into somebody. You're actually happy about it. I'm thrilled when people throw me into it.
I think people take it less seriously because early roller derby was more for show, so it was more like wrestling, it was staged, there was actually punching and things like that, and so people remember that, it used to be filmed on TV, and you watch it on Saturday mornings or something, but it wasn't actual gameplay like it is now, so I think maybe people still think derby is how it used to be.
Yeah, people totally discredit derby because it's not mainstream, and I don't think that they think it's less of a sport. They just don't know about it, so they're like, oh my god, you hit people on skates? And then it's not until the second or third game that they really understand the mental game we're playing. I'm not just hitting her for the fun of it, there is a purpose behind what I'm doing, and so that's a lot harder for mainstream sport fans to grasp about derby.
I think just because they emphasize that you can do it, there's no one type of roller derby player, so they're not oh, it's only strong people. Anybody can do it and it has the power within them, and so it's really about building you up as a person and helping you find the strength, and not some people have it and some people don't. So I really like that, they're just pulling it out of you.
I think that I want to see our sports be equal to men, to where they're not oh, she's a tough woman because she plays contact sports. It's literally just, oh, she's playing a sport, just like it's some guy playing football. I think women are perceived as not tough. We don't hit hard. There's not strength behind us, and so derby gives a voice to that. It's okay for us to hit. It's okay for us to be strong. It really lets us build ourselves up physically, mentally, and we don't have to apologize for being the people we are and taking the space that we do.
I would like to see more women's team sports recognized in the media and actually given credit, not hey, there's you see that women's league where they wear the short tops in football and stuff. Fine, whatever, you want to show your body like that. But then it becomes about that, not about the actual skill of it. And when
ain't hard as us.
This football, as opposed to any other sport, I think is one of the most diverse sports in terms of body types. You need big people, you need little people. I mean, more so than any other sport that I can think of. And it's also just an opportunity that women can do anything, because it's predominantly known as a man's game, and we're proving that it's not.
Women's football got its start in 1926, where men's teams employed women's teams for halftime entertainment purposes.
The true modern version of women's football didn't begin until 1965 in Cleveland, Ohio. A talent agent named Sid Friedman started a semi-professional women's tackle football league and began to call it the Women's Professional Football League. The league started with 2 teams and grew from there.
For most of the first half, Pat Spalinka sat on the bench, wondering what it would be like if she really got in the game.
Right now, I'm nervous and excited and honored that I'm the first woman to play pro football. It's like making my debut.
All 122 pounds of her.
Good deal.
Right on the line there.
Huh?
Right to you, right to your chest.
Okay. Where? Right here?
He's trying to hold the football.
Here?
Right. First time ever in professional football.
God! Ready?
Hold it, boys.
Set! Oh, darn it, kick it! Yeah, I'm okay. Oh, honey.
Beautiful.
I wanted to catch that ball.
Start.
Ready?
Hold it, boys.
Set!
We as a society see football as something that's the exact opposite of what we think a woman should be. We think a woman should be passive. You know, men are the ones that are assertive, that are aggressive, that are dominant leaders, and this is the exact opposite. But it's just ignorance, and one day they'll see that this is just everyday sport, just like basketball and anything else.
Football is more of an outlet for a lot of us. Like our personal lives can get really stressful, and being able to hit someone like legally and getting away with it helps a lot. I definitely don't think that women's football gets the credit that they need. Like the WFA, not a lot of people know about it. When I mention that I play women's football, people think of the lingerie league, like where they're running around in like crop tops and like no pants on and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think we get enough credit for what we do.
I would just like to see it be treated just as any other sport, and it not be women's game. It's a game. You know, it's not women's football. It's football. And I think that the more normalized it becomes, I think then we're really seeing progress and moving forward.
I think if you're not amazing at something right away, still going for it and putting your all into it.
Don't let the guys push you around. If it's not a girly sport, go for it twice as hard and do it just as girly as you would any female sport. Go in there, be a girl, play the hard sports, and like give it your all and play harder than the boys. Because they're totally going to discredit you, they're going to undermine you, and like you gotta come in with a bang.
There's always going to be haters out there, but always use what they have to say as fuel. You never doubt yourself, go 100% and don't look back.
I would say go where you're not invited. Push the limits, whether it's wanting more money, demanding access to contact sports, demanding respect that you don't see happening. I would just say push the envelope and have fun.